faith in the DC movie brand is increased a little bit. I know I say this a lot on video logs. I'm really going to try to keep this short because this is a good movie and I want you to go watch it in the theaters. So I'm not going to have spoilers in this quick review. I'm just going to go down the list of what really worked for me in Wonder Woman. One misgiving I had about the film, but didn't take away overall from the movie-going experience, because this movie was a blast, and I'm so grateful that it was. I was really rooting for this movie. I wanted, you've heard plenty of people say this, we don't want to go into these movies hating them. We don't want to go into DC movies and feeling like, oh, well, here we go, we're going to be depressed. Maybe you go in with some lowered expectations, certainly, but you want to have a good movie. You want to have a good superhero movie. You want to have an excellent Wonder Woman movie. I was really hoping against hope that this film was going to pull off this hat trick and not just be a good movie, but be the first good female-led superhero movie we've had, I guess, ever, because let's think. Halle Berry Catwoman, Tank Girl, which Tank Girl is quirky and stuff, but I don't consider it to be necessarily that great. Elektra, Supergirl. If you can name me some other female-led superhero movies that I'm missing in that batch, please list them below. But really, we haven't had one that is, I want to say, what we would consider to be competent or effective or compelling. Wonder Woman is that movie for you all, finally. I enjoy the Wonder Woman character quite a bit. I first became a fan, I think, back when I was reading like mid-90s DC comics around Zero Hour and things, when they started restructuring the timeline yet again for the DC universe. And that's when I really got into Wonder Woman. I'd always known about Wonder Woman, but I never really delved much into the mythology or into her rogues gallery or characters as much as Batman's. Batman's still my go-to, like, superhero at heart. That's Batman for me, of course. But Wonder Woman, I've always liked what the character has represented, especially in the DC universe, in relation to other heroes, especially Batman and Superman. And I said this on the podcast with Max at one point, the resolution between Batman and Superman in Batman v Superman should have come from Wonder Woman. It shouldn't have come from the coincidental mother's name thing. It should have been Wonder Woman stepping between the two and saying, knock this shit off, guys, we got work to do. Because that's what I feel Diana's always represented, is the best of both of them too, but more balanced. Like, she can be fierce and determined and maybe at times arrogant like Batman. She can maybe be a little too naive or too optimistic like Superman can be, but it's always been tempered with some form of compassion, some form of empathy, some form of honesty. She feels like the most honest of that DC trinity. Even in the whole DC pantheon, like, she's always been kind of renowned for being the one heroine with the greatest capacity for love and understanding, or for fair-mindedness. I've always liked that aspect of the character quite a bit in comics, in the Justice League cartoon, in even the direct-to-video Wonder Woman animated feature, which I thought was really good as well. A live-action Wonder Woman is something I've been wanting to see for a while, because I feel when it's done right, it can be very effective. It can be a very compelling character. You're taking this outsider's perspective from, the society that upholds certain virtues and certain values, to see that the world beyond has essentially let her down a little bit, but she doesn't let that deter her. She keeps persevering and striving for better, striving for fairness, and striving for compassion when she can. And that's a big part of the character's arc in this movie, is it comes from that point. She's still a badass. She can still kick butt and decimate battlefields full of people, but when it comes down to an ultimate choice of, well, am I going to give into rage and anger and let that shape me, or am I going to find the better path? She's miles ahead of this DC Universe's interpretation of Superman on the big screen. I mean, start fresh if you gotta with your DC watching experience. This would be the movie I'd start with, because this is such a bright, optimistic starting point for not just this character, but for what I feel DC could represent. Sure, you can delve into the darker or murkier aspects with characters like Batman, but there's a reason why there are characters like Superman and Wonder Woman in the literature that are intentionally supposed to be the polar opposite of that. This is very much what I've been looking for in Superman in these new films, and I haven't been getting. Hopefully they can turn that around. This is a very, like I said, compelling, very captivating performance from Gal Gadot. When you give her more to work with than just the scenes she was given in Batman v Superman, she is a really good actress in this movie, and she's able to play so many different shades of Diana here. She plays rebellious against her mom, Connie Nielsen, Hippolyta. She plays the fierce warrior. I buy this girl in combat. I buy this woman in combat. You buy the camaraderie she develops with the soldiers in their little battalion with her and Steve Trevor. You buy her connection to Steve Trevor, and part of that's her performance. Part of it is her chemistry with Chris Pine, which is really good. Chris Pine's really great in this as Steve. It can be perceived maybe as that stereotypical superhero love interest subplot, but it's developed well enough, and the actors just have this great natural rhythm between them that you enjoy just conversations they're sharing about when they're on this boat, and Steve and Diana are just trading, ideologies, or talking about like where he comes from, certain practices in his society compared to what life is like for her on Themyscira. There was one really funny line where she basically said, sure, we value, you can see the value of men for procreation, but not for pleasure. And you heard this kind of, oh, throughout the audience from both guys and girls being like, damn. But it was like a funny little moment. And Steve Trevor has the kind of same response as we do, like, oh, okay. Like this befuddled kind of, at times maybe confused, but still very charming and still very accepting of certain things. You buy that these two not only would eventually maybe come to love each other, but also that they respect each other, that they are on equal ground and equal footing. And it's all paced very well. The one drawback I would say for the film is when it comes towards the end of the movie, because that's when it feels like it gets most on autopilot and the most formulaic when it comes to what you expect from a comic book movie these days, is that the third act or the climax is just going to be wholesale destruction, this big kind of fantastical confrontation that maybe visually is leaps and bounds from everything else in the movie so far, but in terms of emotional resonance and in terms of, what I find more fascinating with superhero movies is the arc leading into that as opposed to the actual finale. I enjoy more the parts of her coming to the world of man, of her having this very fish out of water experience, being wide-eyed in response to a lot of what's taken a hold of in man's society, essentially. Her response to seeing wholesale destruction and violence being inflicted on innocent people for the first time in her life, you buy her response to that. You buy her, genuine sorrow when she enters this town that's just been decimated by a chemical weapon. There's so many nice moments in this movie, and it all adds up to a really great arc for that character, and her performance is so well paced and well executed in conjunction with all of her supporting cast that the ending is where it feels the most comic booky. It's okay. It's an okay ending, but just wasn't really what I probably was looking for as a conclusion. But I mean, for what it needs to be as in terms of the big event action movie, it also needs to kind of pose as it does its job. Tonally consistent with the rest of the DC movies in terms of there are muted colors, and it makes more sense in this movie that they're muted more so than in other stuff, because this is taking place during World War I, which is a very bleak and dark chapter in human history. So it's gonna be very dark at times. It's gonna be very bleak. But when Wonder Woman does what she does best, when she takes action in this movie, it's not done with this malicious angle as it's done in other films like Dawn of Justice or Man of Steel. The destruction isn't glorified. It's put in proper context with regards to warfare. and her character herself isn't some like just unstoppable force or violent force in the film. She's actually sort of this beacon. She's this really hopeful type of character that when you see her stand up out of the trenches for the first time and charge into the no man's land against all of the machine gun fire the Germans are throwing at her, it's not like, oh shit, it's a scary woman coming at us. I'm sure that's what they're thinking, but visually to the audience, it's like, yes, there's Wonder Woman doing what she does best, being that fearless warrior who's ready to dish out justice. Yeah, I'm recommending you see this in theaters. Wow, this is the first of these DC movies to make my best of so far. Whether it'll stay on there, we'll see, because like I said, we're only halfway through the year and there's still plenty of movies to go, but I'm really hoping Wonder Woman stays up there. I'm gonna see if it can, because it serves all kinds of different needs. It's a very well put together action film. Patty Jenkins does a phenomenal job with the action and choreography in this. It's a great character piece for this particular superhero, and so far she is the most relatable of these new DC superheroes we're getting. Good on her and good on Gal for that performance. It's funny. It's got moments of levity in it that fit very well into the structure of the story and don't feel forced or awkward. I'm not gonna lie, there are points in this film where I started welling up a little bit. I couldn't really put together why. I started welling up like into the 5 minutes of this movie. I hate to be very Kevin Smithy about it. I'm not stoned, I promise you, but it was weird because the movie has a structure similar to like Captain America: The First Avenger, where you meet her in modern day, then the rest of the movie is like a flashback. And so you go back to when she starts on the island and she's younger, and just seeing this little Diana running around Themyscira, you know, having fun, imitating the warriors that she's watching train, seeing how much she wants to be that. Like, it was heartwarming. I don't know, it was really like a feel-good moment. And even as you see her grow up and you see what she goes through, when you get into the darker aspects and you see her at her most tortured or desperate, that emotionally resonates with you too. But it isn't as haunting as something like Dawn of Justice, where it's very gallows type of imagery and you're just left feeling very depressed at the end and ultimately defeated by the story itself. Here, when there's action scenes, I saw it in the audience. There were little girls throughout the audience in their Wonder Woman shirts, and one of them had like a homemade gold tiara and bracelets and everything. It was adorable. But like, as soon as she like leaps into this clock tower to stop this sniper, you see like these little fists like pump up into the air in front of me. I'm like, that's adorable. That's great. And that's a great thing for this movie to kind of embody a little bit, is it's not over the top with kind of preaching like girl power type stuff. It's very subtle. I mean, it's kind of, you know, if the only reason you're reminded of it is because your lead is a woman. And it's executed so well, so thoughtfully, so subtly, that you can have these younger generations really get into it and really get into this character without feeling like they're being talked down to or preached to, like, this is what you should be at all times. It's like, no, this is what they feel they should be, because the character and the actress and the movie, everything supports it well enough to elicit that response from the audience. God, I want to be Wonder Woman at this point because of this movie. This movie really compels you to go along with this character's journey and this character's plight. Go watch Wonder Woman in theaters. That's all I'm gonna say from here on out. No spoilers, aside from that one line about procreating. But yeah, go see this movie. I am genuinely happy with what we got in this film. I'm still gonna be apprehensive about what's in store for Justice League, as it was with Dawn of Justice. Wonder Woman in these films so far has been a very well deserved saving grace. Keep at it, Wonder Woman. I'm looking more forward to a Wonder Woman sequel than I am a Justice League movie at this point.